Hello investors. 2023 is behind us and it's been a good year. Most people feel that, well, after a good 2023, how would 2024 turn out to be? And that's what we are going to cover today. There's always skepticism when you had a good year. People think, oh, the markets have run up, there should be a big correction, etc., etc. So today, let's try to address this issue. So what we feel at Marathon Trends is that we are actually starting a equity global bull market right now. Yes, and I think that's going to be the big trigger for our markets. I do think for the year or two ahead, we are in a beautiful phase, and the next trigger, as I just pointed out, is going to be resumption, or I would say the beginning of a new equity bull run globally. So let me share with you a few data points, and this will really help you to formulate your strategy for the markets, for your investments in equities in the years going ahead. So the first chart that you can see on your screen is the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is something what I term as mothership. Why S&P 500 is it's also the market with the highest representation in terms of market cap globally. What you see on your screen is a 5-year chart. You will first see that the markets have had a very good run from the 2020 COVID bottoms, and that was fantastic, a good 2-year bull market. However, 2022 was very challenging. As the US Fed started increasing rates, you will realize that there was a good 28% correction in the S&P 500. 2023 was a year of recovery. And as of last month, you will notice that the S&P 500 has broken out to lifetime highs. A breakout to lifetime highs is very important because that actually signals that the markets are in a bull phase. In fact, very often you will notice that when markets go through these kind of consolidations, which you can see, it's almost a 2 years of consolidation. US markets are where they were 2 years. So it's a lost 2 year, you can say. But when these breakouts happen, these moves tend to be dynamic. We estimate that the US in the next 2 years should be up 30% from where it is today, which is a fantastic run rate for a market of that size and that influence. Well, you may say that's just the US, the other parts of the world are not doing, there are geopolitical issues, etc., etc. So the next important geography from our market's point of view is Europe. So this is the Euro Stoxx 50, which is a top 50 stocks in Europe. Again, a 5-year chart. You can see the big bull market post the COVID fall. But post that, Europe had a very bad 2022. Apart from the US Fed increasing rates, the problem was the Ukraine issue directly impacted Europe. You remember how 2 years ago we were talking about how Europe can go through difficulties, difficult winters, etc., etc. That is why you will find that the fall in Europe was almost 36%. A very difficult 2022. But voila, 2023 has been a surprise rally. In fact, European markets have broken out to lifetime highs before the US markets. These are markets we've actually stopped looking at. We think Europe is a laggard, but data tells us otherwise. And it's right in front of you. It's not my interpretation. It's for you to see. And European markets are at lifetime highs. We think that the European markets in the next 2 years would surpass even a 30% up move. And this is an underowned, underloved, ignored space in the global markets, which typically is a perfect setup for a surprise. The third big geography for global equities is Japan. Now, if you look at Japan, it's a very different chart. So the Japanese market actually peaked out sometime in 1989-90. And post that, they have been, as we say, in a perpetual bear market. The Japanese markets actually fell 82%. And where are we right now? You will see that all that fall has been recovered, and we are only 7% from lifetime highs. And these lifetime highs, mind you, were set 35 years ago. A generation lost. So when you have the 3 biggest markets in the world, that's the US, Europe and Japan, and let me tell you, when you take global market cap, they represent 85% of global market cap. So these are really the three markets that actually determine global equities. This actually tells us that when these markets are breaking out to lifetime highs, we are actually starting an equity bull market. And this, I think, is going to be the biggest trigger for Indian markets. 2023 was about the Indian scenario, right? The question is, you ask yourself, what's the trigger now? Now the markets are factored in continuation of politics. We all know the macros are good, but what's the next trigger? I think the next trigger for the next 2 years is going to be the rally in global equity markets. And when 85% of global markets are actually just starting a bull run, you can really understand and appreciate why I feel optimistic about India in spite of a good 2023. Of course, the next chart is most important because that's what concerns us. That's the Nifty 50. Here also on a 5-year chart, you will see a big fall in COVID and a very sharp rise for 2 years. India also fell in 2022 along with the global markets, but our fall was only 18%. And we broke out to lifetime highs much earlier. So in our stock market language, the characteristics of leadership is stocks or markets that fall less when markets fall. You can see we only fell 18% versus 28 and 36 for the US and Europe. So clearly we fell much less than global markets. And as global markets are breaking out to lifetime highs, last month we have broken out to lifetime highs in June of 23. As I said, stocks that fall less than falling markets and are the first to break out are leaders of the bull market. So the whole global scenario, if you look at it, we fell less, only 18%, and we were the first to break out in June of 23. And that is why I feel that why shouldn't India also participate in the next global equity bull run? In fact, I have a feeling India will surprise on the upside because that is what leadership does. And with that optimism, I really set out my thinking, thought process and thesis that for the next 1 to 2 years, 2 years I would say, we are in a good wicket. Corrections will come. Yes, they always do. Markets never go up every day. We will have doubts. You will doubt me, I will doubt myself. But the important thing is to remember the big picture. And the big picture tells us that we are starting a global equity bull market where India enjoys leadership status. The question is not going to be, will you wait for a correction to allocate? The question is going to be, are you allocated enough? And with that thought, I leave you for this month and with my thoughts for the next 2 years. Thank you very much.